If there's one thing we can all agree on, it's that humans will believe almost anything. On Blasphemy with Chris and Marnee, we take a look at some of these beliefs, uncover their very human origins, how they've developed and changed over time, and the very real consequences they had in society and culture. Impacts that continue even today in our lives. Okay. Welcome to Blasphemy. My name is Chris Setti, and with me is Marnee.
Hello.
And today we're continuing our series through what I call the Notorious HPB, right? As we look at Helena Blavatsky and her impact on belief, and specifically belief that formulated around a greater movement called spiritualism. And if you haven't listened to the first episode, you're going to need to, because none of this will make any goddamn sense probably. But
how was the sound on that first one?
I made it better.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's all good.
Our early recordings.
That was a while ago. So we're like
trial and error.
It was months between doing these two episodes. But today we're going to continue, and just to bring us up to speed where we last left off, where the Notorious HPB was in New York City. She just landed there, right? And that was in July 8th, 1873.
You're using the HPB.
That's what they call her.
It's hard for me.
They call her that.
It sounds like HPV. And
yeah, that's true.
Takes my mind.
Anyway, Helena arrives she arrives in New York City on July 8th, 1873. And remember, she's on a mission from the fucking masters. They said, spiritualism's true, but we got like the true. And so we're going to give that to you specifically and specially. Mm-hmm. And remember, she learned like languages that no one knew, so she could translate things that no one else could read, and all this bullshit that everybody does when they're grifting a bunch of fucking gullible idiots. But along the way, it basically came down to where you're going to go. If you're going to like go and preach the real spiritualism, because the master said, go, you're our vessel to go out and literally preach universal truth. This is the truth of the universe given to you by ascended consciousnesses, right?
The masters. Right.
And remember, spiritualism was really popping off in New York because of the Fox sisters. And remember that whole story of like these sisters who faked a bunch of shit, but Okay. So we're going to pick up when she gets to New York City, and we're going to cover in this episode the period in which she founded and kind of operated her big thing, the thing that she's actually known for, and that's the Theosophical Society.
Okay.
She had been in Egypt and like tried to start a spiritist kind of thing, which was, remember, spiritists were like, oh, you're not talking to dead people, you're talking to karmic residue, that because we're all going to be reincarnated, because they were way more Hindu in their ideas than American spiritualism, which was like, it's dead people, it's our dead relatives, it's people haunting places or what have you. So she hasn't really formulated her idea yet. Right? She's still just a lady tramping around the globe, if you believe her, winding up in Tibet and all over the fucking place and doing all this shit.
Are we even in question that she went to those places?
Yeah, I mean, she definitely went to India. She definitely went to Egypt. Tibet, questionable, because she wasn't really supposed to be in Tibet, because white people don't. And so I think Tibet was a fabrication for the most part, because it gave it that mystical hook.
Yeah.
Europeans weren't allowed in Tibet. It was this mysterious fucking place.
Yeah.
And to Americans, it might as well have been the moon, and you could have told me whatever the fuck you want was coming from there, right? Now I believe, because we're like, yeah, that's fucking exotic, crazy fantasy land, Tibet, where all these monks are hovering above the ground while they meditate, or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I feel like Tibet, I mean, God, she fucking all over India. Like, she did do cool shit. Like, I'm not dissing her. Like, she was a bad bitch to a certain extent, and I respect her for those parts.
Yeah.
She also is a total grifter. Total grifter. This woman knows that what she's saying is not true. I'm sorry. She absolutely knows it. She's not crazy. She's not delusional. She's smart, manipulative, and wants to have some kind of, like, importance in the world, right? That's what these people are, for the most part, that gather these kinds of things that I would call harmless cults.
How do you know she knew it wasn't true?
Because it isn't true.
But how do you know she knew that? People that believe these things believe them.
Is it more likely that she knew she was making shit up because she created this story along the way? So if she believed it, then she was forming these beliefs apparently in this staggered way, because all of a sudden this would show up in the narrative, and that was never there before. But it gave her a little cred over here because she was being questioned in that area.
Yeah, I guess if she made up parts of the story.
Why are we surprised that that's true? Like, what would surprise us?
No, because
this is what's happening everywhere.
I'm just telling you that people that believe, and they do crazy fucking shit because they believe. We were in the church, and people believe that shit, and they get mega churches following them.
They believe it. I'd still like to hook them up to a lie detector just to
They believe it.
I hear you. You're right. You're right. I'm sorry. But when you look at the story of Helena, this is intentional. This is not someone who's a true believer who's all of a sudden coming to new realizations, who's then truly believing that and just innocently no, she is not.
Yeah.
And I think there are layers and layers and layers of reasons why she does this. There are good ones. I don't want to come across as I'm saying she's evil. She's fucking not. Now, unfortunately, the bullshit that she wove, which I believe she knew was bullshit, led to evil shit. Some of it. And we'll talk about that, in coming episode here. But in this one, we need to talk about how she got her formal society together and then kind of what went on around that.
And that's where we go back to that the belief in one wrong thing.
Yeah.
Is the beginning of all unwisdom.
Yes.
Be careful.
Yeah.
Not to believe easily. So what I'm saying is she had some ideas and beliefs that she made up that people believed later and became really, really horrible things. That's why it's like, be careful what you believe.
Yeah. And I'm not blaming her. She did not.
No, I'm saying the people that believed her. She said. She created the thing.
Yes. I'm not judging her or anything like that.
No.
But I do not believe that she was a true believer. I do not.
Right.
Do not.
Right.
And I believe that there's very, very, very few of those, and you might be special or something, because I'm sorry. That's just not, I don't think that's true.
No. A lot of people believe the bullshit that they believe. They really believe it.
All right. Well, it's too bad. They shouldn't. Just look around you then.
I mean, a lot of people, I've met a lot of people that found that they were raised in families that believed religion, and they felt as little kids they didn't even believe. And I'm just fascinated because I did.
She wrote a story about herself, and she picked something that you could absolutely differentiate yourself on because people didn't know anything. Now you walk into some fucking thing and you start weaving some new agey or whatever, like spiritual thing. Everyone's heard everything.
Yeah.
Right? Back then it was like, fuck, this lady's talking shit I've never even fucking heard before. They're super primed because remember they were like fleeing traditional religion, and then spiritualism comes in, and it's kind of this wave, the fastest growing religion in America. And they start getting super interested in all this like supernatural phenomenon. So you come talking some mystical fucking stuff from far off lands that I don't know shit about. Yeah. She's She's a con woman, but she's a brilliant one. And then that's why I'm saying, like, I'm not saying she's evil or anything. I don't think she was trying to hurt anyone. That's for sure.
Right.
So she ends up in New York on July 8th, 1873, and she works odd jobs picking up sewing gigs and making various items for sale, renting small apartments, and trying to establish herself in the spiritualist community, right? She doesn't come in with a big splash or anything. There's not people waiting on the dock like, Helena's here, to teach us the truth from the masters. She shows up and, hey, little girl in the big city, kind of thing. And she's working odd jobs and just kind of struggling to make it and trying to she's going to meetings that she hears about. She's trying to get inroads into the spiritualist community that's burgeoning there, thanks to the Fox sisters and all the shit. And, that's just her life at this point. Yeah. So it's just kind of like toiling. So she winds up being interviewed by a newspaper and she tells her wild story. Now, as far as can be determined, this is like the first time Tibet shows up in the tale. Okay, so she's been around. She's been telling people her stuff, in the spiritualist community. She's kind of like explained her adventures and the wisdom she's gained and all this shit. But Tibet first shows up now. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So she didn't believe this before, but now she does.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Okay. And so as far as can be determined, as far as any place that shows up in writing, this newspaper interview is the first time she kind of throws that thing in. And again, it like bumps up the kind of ooh factor, right? Let's see. People find it hard to believe and insist on evidence. Good for you, people. They're like, really? Magically, though, detailed records supporting her claims appear suddenly. Most historians have concluded that she created them herself, because of course she did. And again, people are like, she wouldn't do that. Oh my God, what world are you living in? Like, this is come on, yes, she did. Her father dies around this time. Good news for her, by the way, because she inherits his money. So she gets a fortune at this point. So she's sewing gigs, can you imagine?
She's trying to make it, and then her father dies. Okay.
Think about 1873, New York City, woman sewing gigs. Yeah. This isn't sitting with your friends, needle pointing, listen to podcasts while you sip white wine, right? This is toiling in sweatshops for fucking nothing. And all of a sudden, bam, she's rich. Which, good for her, And so now this allows for a new lavish lifestyle now. And also it gives her inroads into that upper class. Yeah. And they were the ones who were super into this shit. Yeah. Because they had the time.
Other people were just trying to survive.
There's women working 12 hours a day mopping floors. Yeah. They're not trying to seance some bullshit. No. It's the rich bitches.
They got nothing else to do.
Exactly. Anyway, let's see. Where was I? Okay. And so she marries a guy who becomes completely infatuated with her. This guy, I don't know what it was about her. Because again, you can Google pictures of her. It's not like you're putting a poster up, right? It's she's not attractive, in the sense that you would think. But she must have been super charming and captivating and have again, leading to the grift. I mean, these are grifters. These are con men. They are good at this. Yeah. And she was very, very magnetic. You see that over and over, which it would have been interesting to meet her because she did have this pull, right? And this guy falls in love with her, right? And she marries him, right? But she's already fucking married.
What? Wait.
Remember back in Russia? Remember she got married really young.
Oh yeah.
And then she didn't want it. Right after.
Right.
And then he finally calls her dad and says, come get her, because she keeps trying to escape.
Oh, but she's still married to him.
And then she escapes on the way back to daddy's house. And then that's how she ends up on this adventure, and she ends up here. Right. But now daddy dies and bam, she's rich. And so she ends up married to this dude. And so people start
illegally married because she's still married to the guy?
So people start saying start saying she's a bigamist, but then she says, no. Never fucked him. Doesn't count. True story. That was her answer, was I didn't have sex with him.
So the marriage isn't...
Yeah. And some people are like, oh, I bet I don't know. This guy got so frustrated, he finally said, fuck you, and went back to Russia. And he was just like, whatever. He was totally in love with her. I think he wasn't getting any, to be honest. And there's other things later we'll talk about that I think she really wasn't having sex with him. And I'm not sure why she married him, other than...
Wasn't she made to?
Okay, I'm going to say
Wasn't she made to?
Why would she be made to? No, this guy.
This guy.
This
I thought you
guy.
meant the first guy.
Yeah, I
Her
didn't
dad
really
made her.
look that far into it. But again, okay, I'm just looking at her from a grifter standpoint. This is control. This guy's in love with her.
Yeah.
Will do anything for her.
Yeah.
She probably used the shit out of this guy.
Yeah.
He wanted to fuck her. She probably dangled that and never did.
Wait,
And-
I'm confused. She didn't have sex with either of the husbands?
I don't know. She probably fucking got raped by her first husband for
Oh,
all I
so
know. That was a long time ago. That was when she was fucking 19 years
confused.
old.
I thought you were saying the first husband she never had sex with.
No, the first husband is the one she escaped from constantly.
I know.
He probably did terrible things to her. I'm just assuming.
Oh, I thought you were saying that marriage didn't count because she didn't have sex with
No,
him.
she's
saying
saying-
this marriage.
She's saying this new marriage in New York City now, after all these, she's here. She inherits a bunch of money, whatever. This guy falls in love.
Okay.
But this marriage doesn't count because she didn't have sex with him. I'm
Okay.
just saying, why would she marry him? Well, he became a very useful idiot
Okay.
in love with
Yeah,
her.
yeah.
And then she had this ultimate thing that she could just keep him. But he finally is like, fuck it. And he leaves. And he like sued her for divorce and everything. He was pretty pissed off. So I do not think he ever had sex with her, to be honest. She heads up to Vermont in 1874 to see a demonstration by two brothers who claim to have psychic powers. Lots of this going on.
Yeah.
Because of the Fox sisters. Remember, they were the
Yeah.
first ones to like in public for a paying audience to watch these incredible phenomenon from the spirit realm. And so now everyone's getting on that game because notice that's what happens. Come up with an idea and sell it on the internet.
Yeah.
30 people jump on that bandwagon. That's kind of the thing. And so there's a bunch of people trying to, get on the grift. And some people are really good at it and some people are really bad at it. But she goes up to check these people out, right? While there, she meets a reporter named Henry Steele Olcott who is investigating the brothers. Rather than write about them, though, he winds up becoming so fascinated with Helena, he writes about her instead. So his newspaper gives him this assignment. Go up and investigate this shit. Because while all this stuff is going on, there's a lot of people going like debunking it. There's people explaining it, catching people, doing all kinds of shit to try and like disprove this stuff, right? And so a lot of newspapers were on that game where they wanted articles because there was a lot of buzz around spiritualism. And, just like now, just say something controversial and people fucking buy the shit out of our newspaper. And so if it says spiritualism proven wrong, people will buy the shit out of that. If it says spiritualism proven right, they'll buy the shit out of that. Just get a something. So he goes up there and I don't know, he winds up bumping into Helena and she starts chatting him up. And again, she has this thing.
Yeah.
And he just winds up writing this giant article about her. Doesn't even write about what he's supposed to write about. Just fuck the brothers. Who cares? They're probably whatever. He just like right there just is drawn in.
Yeah.
Like this tractor beamed in on this woman. So she begins indoctrinating him into her occult beliefs, convincing him to give up sex, alcohol, and meat. Now, if that is ever the list of things you need to give up to know the truth, run. Who cares about the truth? That's dumb.
That's funny. A female cult leader will stop sex. A male cult leader will center it on sex.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, there's been very few
She's like, don't have sex.
Female, because like female cult leaders are like, man, it's no fun when I don't have to make them have sex with me or anything. She's like, oh, you, okay, and they're like, she's like, this isn't fun. Now, Henry used his media influence and ties to promote her brand of spiritualism. So now, again, just imagine, you could see that she's like, here's what I need. Fuck, how do I get my message out? I need to know someone that fucking can get my shit out to people.
Yeah.
Like meeting in little parlors with 10 like housewives or even going to these little meetings or traveling around. It's not what I want. I want the masses. I'm here to save the fucking world, right? 10 people is bullshit.
Yeah.
And so here comes Henry, a very useful tool, a mouthpiece, a megaphone that she can get her ideas out about. And he begins, she teaches him all her magical shit that she's making up on the fly, probably a lot, and stuff that she's learned in her travels that she's kind of cobbled together into this kind of mystical, confusing circular reasoning kind of idea that just keeps people going and going. And, he starts pumping her shit out. So first, the two call themselves the Brotherhood of Luxor. So nerdy as shit. But I mean, it's cool, I guess, anyway. But
wait, again... she and him?
Yeah, together. They call themselves the Brotherhood of Luxor.
Is that just like probably to get some she's misogynistic world? She's got to have masculine.
There's that in it. There's definitely that in it. And also, I mean, that was a common thing for like an esoteric community.
Yeah, but because of men. I'm just saying as a brotherhood.
I know.
And she didn't put any feminine in the name.
It should have said Peoplehood of Luxor.
I know.
I get that.
What I'm saying, I'm saying it was in that world to get attention, having it male.
Why couldn't they just call themselves like Luxor Group? Ooh, that's fucking hot, right? But the Brotherhood of Luxor, you're right. But I think what they were hearkening to were like ancient, like medieval. They could have said
the Order of Luxor.
They could have, but again, I think there's a lot of shit happening at this time. There was a lot of like stuff was finding itself into the hands of ordinary people. Books, stories, shit like that.
Yeah.
So, when you talk about like medieval knights and Knights Templar, I mean, they had those kinds of ideas. They didn't look at all like what we imagine it looked like back then for the most part. But the Brotherhood of Luxor has this idea of that. I don't know. It was fucking stupid. And again, it could be in reference to the masters too, which were all men according to her too. So again, misogyny. And it is the late 19th century, so...
Right.
So they call themselves this in an article they wrote for a spiritualist publication, but before long, the masters got involved, telling Helena that they needed to rebrand, and the pair changed their name to the Miracle Club. That sounds like a show on TBN, like Trinity Broadcasting or whatever.
The Miracle Club.
The lady with huge blonde hair. The Miracle Club. Anyway, they began holding esoteric lectures and communities out of their home under that name. So, like, come to the Miracle Club meeting where we're going to talk a bunch of bullshit. And people did. At a Miracle Club meeting on September 7th, 1875, the two, along with some new converts, decided to make it more official and establish an organization around Helena's ideas. So she's like gathered herself little disciples, right? And they're committed. And she's just feeding them this nonsense, right? And some of it's probably helpful to them too. But I mean, for the most part, it's made up. It's just stuff she's cobbled together, we'll see, from various religions and traditions, and just kind of mash them together into this mix that no one knows shit about. So what are you going to argue it? Kind of thing. And so it was at a meeting that they're sitting there, right, that they decided to establish an official organization. And while they're there, one person threw out the idea of calling it Theosophy, which is a combination of the Greek words for God and wisdom. So it's like the wisdom of God. In other words, Helena represents the wisdom of God because these ascended beings that literally are the wisdom of God are channeling directly through her. Okay. And so to this day, they're called Theosophists. Like, it's called the Theosophical Society is the official name. So things take off and the society draws a lot of prominent members from the spiritualist community, right? There's this hot new thing, man. They got a killer name. They got this woman that people are into.
Yeah.
And so they start siphoning it off. It's kind of like a new church in town, right? You're like, ooh, that pastor, I heard he's real good. And all of a sudden, like pull away from all the other churches.
Ones, yeah.
But she needed a book to define her new religion, right? She's been talking and it's like, I'm sure it's exhausting, like having to remember all this shit. Like you got to keep track of all of it in your head and you're making up new stuff in response to what they're into. And so she's like, I need to write this stuff down. And so she begins writing it in 1875. And Isis Unveiled, Secrets of the Ancient Wisdom Tradition is published in 1877. Within 1 week, all 1,000 copies sold in 1875.
Wow.
Fuck.
Yeah.
She's killing it. Go Helena. Immediately, the mainstream press and academia pointed out that the book was nothing but plagiarized ideas and outright word-for-word textual copies from multiple texts from various religions.
And nobody cared.
From Hinduism to Buddhism to Egyptian mythology to Christianity, she concocted something that would sound new, exotic, and at the same time familiar and easy to swallow. Sections from over 100 different existing books were identified as direct ripoffs from religious and philosophical texts. So again, does she believe this? No, she does not believe this.
Yeah.
This is a con, a brilliant con, and it's doing things for her and it's doing things for other people, but it's a con.
What if she believes?
Oh my God, you want her to believe so fucking bad. She did not. She didn't. She didn't. And it's okay that she didn't. I'm not accusing her of anything.
Not believe at all, but like be like, well.
No, so you're talking about wanting to believe? That's a different thing than believing.
Like these things work. So I can piece together a bunch of different things that work just to make my own thing.
I will say this: nothing good came from any of this. None of these people.
I'm not saying that.
That's why I'm saying is I don't understand why you need to give her all of this, because she's a con woman and I respect it. I'm not accusing her of anything, but I'm also not going to pretend that she's not a human being and that it's just she was sane. And she knows the world doesn't work this way, and you're watching her create this story, and she's grabbing things that are useful to her, and then you think it's from belief? Because then she'll tell the story as, well, the masters brought the right people at the right time. No, she fucking spotted the right tool that she needed at that time to make her thing, agenda, whatever, move forward.
I guess what I'm talking about is she's functioning from subconscious. She would know what's the right thing unconsciously and intuitively.
Okay, well, I don't know. I think that we have this idea that if people do that, they're criminals. I'm not calling her a criminal. I'm not calling her someone that did anything immoral, but she's a con woman and she was doing it for her own reasons, but she made all of this shit up.
Evil.
Okay.
I'm just talking about belief and how people believe.
And I think that we romanticize that to a large degree because we want to believe, which I want to believe in things too. I do. But I also think that when we step back and stop, we go, okay, I used to, when I was a fucking pastor, I used to tell people like, nobody in here lives like a God is real. Nobody does.
Yeah, I used to say that.
I used to say it all the time because we don't. You know why? Because he's not, and we fucking know it. But
no.
Okay. All right.
That's what
fine.
I'm saying is subconsciously we don't know. You're talking about no. I guess I'm saying consciously, no, we don't know. We would do the things we did as Christians and just be like, keep only what we wanted to in our consciousness.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure. But believers didn't care, settling for her story that she had never even heard of, let alone seen these books before. Even today, Theosophy apologists will say, so even if they are direct plagiarisms, she couldn't possibly have had access to that info, so it only proves her magical powers more. It makes it even more amazing that she knew exactly what those other books said. So they're basically like, okay, say that she did write it word for word. Doesn't that make it even more amazing? Like she didn't miss anything? Like it's almost like she knew it without knowing it? Which like, fucking what? First of all, isn't she like a world traveler spending time in temples and ashrams and shit? She said she was all over these places, learning from these people, reading these things. So then why is all of a sudden she had no access to these things like she fucking obviously did?
Yeah, she did.
Wouldn't that have exposed her to such ideas? And secondly, the reporters and academics didn't seem to have any problem identifying these plagiarized sections. So people definitely had access to them in America, right? She had means. If she wanted to go read a bunch of books, she could find them. Like I said, they're writing, as soon as the book comes out, professors and investigative journalists are writing things. They immediately, so they obviously knew that.
They knew they were plagiarists.
Right, but so not the suckers. Right, but that's not, they aren't usually the suckers, right? Because they're exposed to too much of how the world operates and they go, I'm going to start with that's not true because that sounds magical.
Yeah.
And that's, unfortunately, there's a bunch of people who don't give a shit about that. So it mostly remained in the halls of academia and other subsections of society, so bring it to the general public gave it this mysterious feel. She also had a lot of money, which gave her access to people and things that regular folks didn't, right? This wasn't magic channeling happening here. It was a total con. And she knew it was a fucking grift because the masters aren't real, and that's not how the real world works. She didn't get this shit from the masters because she's creating it as she goes, right? So unless they're giving it to her in these little like things or something, the masters aren't real. She knows they're not real, but these people will believe they're real because they're hungry for something real, right? And they're in this world that's shifting constantly. Like their lives are fucked up because they once lived like this and now factories and shit came in and the job I once held is no longer... I'm not needed for it anymore. And if people forced into huge divisions of poverty and class, and it was rough. And so you really did want something that was like above all of this, something better than all this, something that didn't feel dirty and fucking wrong and unfair, you know?
Something to explain what you're going through.
Right. And so I can respect her. And at the same time, I can also go, fuck you, Helena, because you're taking advantage of these people. She did. Like, some of these people... fucking gave up their lives, left their families, like left their children, like did all this shit because she's telling them that she has this universal galactic truth from these fucking ascended masters. But that's not what she cared about, right? All she cared about was that they all went, Helena's the one that has the answers, right? And she gives that away by saying, hey, the masters came and told me that I'm the only one with the answers. They chose me. So listen, you can find countless people on the internet that will tell you that same exact thing right now. David Icke. There's a lady up here in Washington that channels some Atlantean being that apparently is... all of this stuff came from her. All of that shit. Whether it's aliens or souls from Atlantis from million years in the past when they were this high-tech society or whatever it is that someone is telling. Angels. You name it. There's people out there saying something out there that knows everything is talking to me specifically because they chose me because I'm a special person. And so now you need to listen to me.
Yeah.
That was Helena fucking... she's the one that really set that idea. There was no ascended masters. There was none of that shit until her. So she's super influential. I mean, you have to give her that.
I literally was just reading an article before we started this. That was psychologists doing like a study on spiritual practices and narcissism. Like people that follow different spiritual practices show narcissistic behavior in that I know better than you. I know truth more. I have to be patient with you because you don't understand. Anyways, it was an interesting article because obviously we're in that kind of world. But I also where we see that.
But I also don't have to listen to you because nothing you say could possibly be true.
That's what it was like. No, there's no measure. No. It gives them a self-esteem boost. And a superiority, and there's no standard test to measure their spirituality or their knowing, so they can just feel superior.
Right, and they can set their level and tell people whatever they want.
Yeah,
they're like, I'm a black belt and like whatever, you know, like I just
it was,
well, like Helena, I'm a chosen person to speak for the masters.
It was the highest in energy readers, energy healers.
It's because they're empaths, babe. They're special.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, they're sensitive, more sensitive.
Yes, they're aware more.
And when I read people's charts, like their astrological birth charts, I always make sure to tell them, no one is more emotional than anyone else.
Yeah,
everyone has the same fucking emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people wear them outside and some people internalize them, but let's not get out of control and believe that we're all these different people and then we can go, well, this is better than that. And yeah, some people pick up those signals because they were abused as a kid and they had to learn how to fucking sense every goddamn ripple in the emotional, you know, whatever.
But everybody senses and deals with what they sense differently. So I probably wouldn't have pinpointed you as an empath because of the way you handle the information that you read and take in. But after being married to you for almost 30 years, be 30 years next month, you're extremely quote unquote empathic where you're sensing fucking everything in your environment.
Yeah.
You just have a different way of handling it, coping with it, and internalizing it than other people.
Yeah.
And so it's not obvious that you are quote unquote an empath. So yeah.
Yeah. All the fucking 1,000 jobs I've had so far in my life, Jesus Christ. What always made me good at it is I could step in a room and immediately know what everyone in there wants, feels, and is thinking, and then be able to like address all of that and bring them all together and make them kind of fall in love with me a little bit, or like the brand I'm representing if I'm working for a company, make them fall in love with that.
Yeah.
And that was it. It wasn't like, oh, you know so much about this. It's like, I know enough that I can fucking talk. And I also have this thing where I can just produce words that I could talk about things I don't know. I could debate you and you'll feel like I beat you. And I don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about. And it's not a great thing. It's just like a thing. And so, yeah, you're right. Like people, but then one way of expressing that or being that somehow gets elevated as more holy, more spiritual, more whatever, more this. And then all of a sudden everyone like that's like that because of chance or whatever the fuck is like, I'm special. And then everyone else is like, oh, those people are so special.
What's gotten popular right now is the ones that are taken a lot and are like overwhelmed by it. And they're learning, oh, I'm not a failure. I'm an empath. I'm just reading so much. The thing is like, you're also taking in a lot and you use it to your advantage, or you internalize it and your body suffers for it physically.
Yeah.
But so you don't feel it as overwhelm. So it's not like this thing where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so stressed because I'm an empath. You don't feel it and name it that, but it is what is you're experiencing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's human, psychological, like mysterious. I totally get that why we have so much room to make up ideas around this stuff is because we don't know exactly everything.
I'm just talking about the different ways that you would just the empath. We're talking about the empath.
Yeah, like empaths. Everyone's empathic. There's different ways that
we take in the information and cope with it and handle it.
So let's stop trying to be special. I understand why. I understand the impulse too, because we live in this fucking like connected sea of like humanity, and we want to differentiate.
Everybody has a need to be special.
Yeah.
But that makes us not special.
Just don't be annoyingly special. That's all I'm asking.
No. If we can just live in this place of like, we all need to be special, which is actually very same and not special, that we all need it.
That makes none of us special. But
and then like we get annoyed. We're annoyed with other people trying to be special because we want to be special. And we're trying to not, there's just a whole bunch of stuff going on. So specialness.
Right. It's like those groups on the internet. Those groups on the internet for people who don't like people and just want them all to die. Like, it's interesting because you need to talk to people about it. Like, find this real need to commune around this. Yeah, we're just people. Once we figure that out, hey, Age of Aquarius, that's what it's all about, the human age. Like, maybe we'll finally figure out, like, oh, we're humans and we're not magical creatures that we can just, like, fantasize about. And we actually have human things that we can solve problems with if we would just all agree that that's what we're using instead of some of us using magic and some of us using reason.
I would love for you to get that message out, the Age of Aquarius, and what that meaning is. Like different from what we kind of have culturally accepted.
Oh my God. I wanted to kill myself leading up to this solstice because all I saw was all these fucking internet astrology memes of how everything was going to change when this happened. And like the next day I woke up, I'm like, you look around you idiots. Do you know how many eclipses and astrological events I heard about last year that was pointing to an incredibly awesome 2020? Didn't work out.
Yeah.
So,
well, like we were talking about with our friend, that if you set an intention for an event to have meaning to you, it will, and you can shift things in your own personal life. It's not it's not the actual planets doing it.
Totally. Symbolism, huge.
Yes.
Personal effect.
Yeah.
But yeah, these people were saying because it's happening the entire world and all of humanity, fuck off. What's wrong with you? God. to me, that sounds so childish and so like escapist that I'm like, how are we ever going to move forward if a lot of us are just waiting for unicorns to come save us? It's fucking nuts. Anyway, let's get back to so she releases her book, Isis Unveiled. It's a huge hit. She sells a fucking 1,000 copies in a week. And again, if I released a book today,
buy a copy of it. Can you still get it?
Fuck yeah, you can.
Isis Unveiled.
Are you kidding? You can get all this shit. This is still selling like, I mean, people have this on their bookshelves, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And again, I need to stress a lot of the stuff that became the new age of the 60s through the 80s and like what we'll rebranded as spiritual kind of movement or whatever now, which just took their concepts and just whatever, evolved the language a little bit. A lot of it came from her. Yeah. She's kind of the mother of that movement. Not everything.
That's why it would be interesting to read because she wrote this in what? What year was this?
Fucking 1875.
Right. And to see, like, I would like to read it and see what is all currently in all these, like...
Oh, you'll still see things.
All the people that are, like, leading, like... movements right now and the voices of the spiritual world.
You know what? After years of searching, I finally found this. Oh, you mean this thing that's been said 1,000 times, but because it's new to me, all of a sudden I've seen. This is what I'm saying. These people don't believe. The ones who gather huge followings and
charge a lot of money to be a part of their group.
Yes. If you're fucking good at social media, you don't believe. You understand marketing.
Yeah.
You are doing something to gather an audience, elicit a response, and get something from it, whether it's money or whether it's fame or whether it's notoriety, whatever it is that you're fucking needing from this grift. That's what it is. And there's oh my God, I've watched some crazy stuff out there. It's fun. If you watch it from the perspective of this guy's lying, but I'm going to watch him lie really well and watch these people respond, you know, and it's fascinating and cool in a way. And a lot of it is harmless and I don't care. I'm not trolling them and saying you're stupid. I just watch it and go like, it's so fascinating people do this. I think it's not great that they're so willing to do this, but I also don't think it's harmful because these people are just like, whatever. They're just dressing in white and like,
a lot of, what are they? Spiritual bypassing.
Yeah, that's what it is. They're just like escaping from life.
Go to your thing, go to your event, go to your retreat, go to your da-da-da, go to your, spend your money there, go to this group, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Bypass living in your present with who you're in, with who you're with presently in your physical location.
Yeah. If you keep moving, you will have to sit and go, maybe I'm okay the way I am. Anyway, and there's a lot of people willing to go like, oh no, you're not, and I can show you how to be better, and it's just $1,500. Yeah, you know, it's no big deal.
No big deal. You can find it.
What price would you put on?
If it's important to you, you can find the way to pay for that.
Exactly. They're like, I mean, how important is your spiritual well-being and possibly eternal state?
Stuff, you'll be able to make that $1,500 in your future.
Right.
Whew.
As soon as I'm not going to say anymore. I'm going to get in trouble. Okay, so anyway.
What? And I have to just say, this is going to go off, but we were just like going off on like marketing, and I went into a program and I didn't spend the $10,000, but I actually went looking for a cheaper version and found it, and it did clear out my shit, but I only spent $2,500 rather than $10,000.
Yeah, shop around. Do that. Shop around. Don't go with the first grifter. Find someone.
Find the cheaper grifter because the work is the work. You could probably find it for free.
Find a con man with a promo code, for God's sakes. Come on, be smart consumer. If we're going to be them, let's be smart. Okay, so anyway, after the book's release, after Isis Unveiled is released, the Theosophical Society kind of lags a little bit. Not a lot happens through 1878 or so. She did become a U.S. citizen in July of 1878, but by December of that year, she was complaining about how much she hated living in America. She's like, you know what? Now that I have America, I'm not into America. And again, I don't know. That's a little bit of a glimpse into her personality. Like, always going for more. Her story continually got bigger and bigger and bigger. It was like she was she was never satisfied and always needed a new, like, jolt of admiration or adoration or whatever the fuck it is.
That's very human and normal.
It's very human and normal, and that's my point, is that she's not believing either.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of 1879, Helena with Henry Olcott in tow, they head off to India, right? He's like, I'm not having sex or eating barbecue anyway. What the fuck am I doing? So he just remember he gave up meat and sex and all that shit.
This is his...
He's the newspaper guy.
Okay.
He's the newspaper guy.
The Brotherhood guy.
Yeah, the Brotherhood of Luxor guy, right. Yeah, he's like OG. I mean, this is like our partner, right?
So he heads off with her to
India.
Okay.
Right? Because she's like, I don't want to be in America anymore. I kind of feel like some shit happened, to be honest.
Well, yeah, if you're...
I feel like she might have been exposed, because there is evidence, and true evidence, that she was caught by these people that were kind of trying to debunk and trying to get people to like think about these spiritualist things. And so she was caught faking shit.
Yeah, if you're conning, you're only the last.
Yeah, you might need to
certain
bail.
amount of time in an area, and you got to move on.
Yeah. When she arrives in India, she hooks up with some Hindu reform groups that were fighting the British colonial government. The local people loved her. They appreciated this white European woman coming in and promoting their religion and causes rather than trying to make them Christians and fall in line under Britain. So she goes and kind of joins these nationalist movements that are trying to fight against this British colonialism. Right? So this is like ideas that Gandhi came out of and things like that at this time, right? I mean, shortly after this, in the decades to follow, right? And she shows up. Now, again, I'm glad she did this. I think this is a very noble thing. I think she did good.
Right.
It also allows her to stand out and be something very special. She is the lone white person in this country standing with these people. So it kind of elevates her as this special, again, someone to be drawn to and wonder what the fuck are they all about, right? And then she can tell you what she's all about. And next thing you know, you're a theosophist, you know, kind of thing. It's kind of like live like Jesus and people will be drawn to you. And then you can tell them that you know how to, that kind of thing. She's a missionary.
Yep.
In fact, she loved the Indian people so much, she decided to take a 15-year-old boy named Babala as her own personal servant. Yikes. So, you know, still a white person in India in the fucking later 19th century, which was not great. Now, if you look into Babala, really all you will find is stuff coming from the Theosophical Society, where they go out of their way to put a lot of effort and to convince you how much Babala loved serving Helena. I'm just saying they might be protesting a little too much.
A little too much.
Yeah, everything is like, oh, no. He loved it.
He loved it. He loved
I'm just
her.
like, fuck off. Come on. And that's what I'm saying. Like, at what point... I hate when we go back and we like reinvent the story to make it seem like it's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Instead of facing that, oh, we fucked up, we go back and we like recreate this whole thing, and that makes us like, no, it was all great or whatever. I don't know. One day, the three of them are out for a walk and wind up coming across some caves. Helena confidently explains to them that they are deep underground tunnels that lead to the subterranean hall where the masters hold their meetings. So she's first of all, she's great at thinking on her feet, which is what you need. You need to be able to go like, ba 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 doo ba 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 ba, you know, like you say this, I gotta say this, you know, like you always got to be able to do that. And, you know, you got to keep giving them shit that draws them along the path. You can't just say the same things over and over, because then they know it and they can just, what do they need you for? But if you're like dishing out shit, right, and all of a sudden it's like, wait, she knows where the fucking masters meet and we just happen to walk, she magical because we're led right to the caves, you know? Pretty fun. She also tells them that the masters are telepathically communicating with her right there, and they are telling her to head north. Along her travels, she demonstrates her spiritual powers to the people she encountered along the way, spreading the evolving ideas of theosophy, right? So she's like brilliant. This woman, I'd love to talk to her, because I bet she was incredible, because she is leading this little band, making converts, making shit up along the way. keeping it all straight because she's got Henry there and stuff. He's heard it all. So she's got to like fucking keep him because I think he was a believer.
Yeah.
He was a sucker for sure. And as soon as she said, stop eating meat and having sex, and he said, okay, she knew, I got you. Come on, buddy. And so, you know, she's fucking impressive. I'm sorry. She's a bad bitch.
I dislike calling him a sucker.
Okay.
Because I relate to the believers.
Yeah, okay.
It was humiliating when I found that what I had believed with everything for my whole life wasn't true, and everybody else was around going, what the fuck are you believing that shit for? I felt stupid. And so I don't like to be a party to belittling believers. Yeah. I mean, I get frustrated with believers when they're assholes. Right, and so I will probably mouth off then. But just in general, like I relate to suckers, so I don't like to call us that.
You're like, I am a sucker. That's why I don't like you calling me a sucker.
I don't like you calling Exactly. Stop
Marnie kind of is a sucker. Like, we have to, like, yeah.
I'm a marketer's fucking dream for one.
For 30 years, I've been like running this perimeter around her, putting stakes in the ground like, we're weird if we go past here. While she's just ranging all over this fucking crazy thing.
I think let's buy that. Let's do this.
And I'm like, no. Okay, fine. That's weird. I'll be weird with you here. That's fine. Okay. Oh, no, not there because then we're really weird and people will know we're weird and we're not going to have that. It's been fun. Hasn't been boring.
Nope.
I'm not bored with you.
Nope.
Wake up every day going like,
I'm really grateful for the boundaries.
Yeah.
Of my weirdness.
And I'm thankful for you getting me out of my comfort zone and trying things that I fucking never would have.
Into some weirdness.
Marnie's gotten me into some weird situations.
Weird shit.
Where I'm like sitting going,
why
oh my fucking God. How did I get here, Marnie? But, you know, I've grown, kind of.
Me too.
So anyway, she's at this cave. She's like, this is where the masters meet. Holy shit, we're here. Yeah. And hold on. Oh, they're talking to me right now. Go north. They want us to go north. This is this is what she's doing. And they're going like, oh my God, she's talking to the masters. Hold on. She's like, go north and just preach the message. And, you know, there's going to be signs and wonders that will show. Sound familiar? Like, this is a story that happens in every messianic complex because they're the messianic archetypes that we've created for thousands of years. These people chosen by God, gods, masters, whatever you want to say. And then they're sent out on a mission to preach, and some people are going to believe, and they're going to, you know, follow you, and some people are going to believe because they can't. They have they have eyes to see and ears to hear.
Yes. You're special if you can hear me, because not everybody can. You're special. Right. Listen.
So this is a common thread in a lot of these mythological backstories. For instance, Jesus and Paul in the Bible. The idea is they're chosen, which makes them special. Demonstrated by all these miracles and through some kind of divine direction, they head off on a mission to spread the truth, being rejected by those who can't see and received by those who can, just like you said. By October of 1879, Helena and Henry start publishing a magazine called The Theosophist. It's a lot of fucking in it. The Theosophist. It was a huge success and gained a large readership almost immediately. Along her missionary journey, she would meet many Western colonists to whom Helena would perform her psychic feats. In one instance, she convinced a bunch of gullible white people that she had made a cup and saucer materialize underground with her mind. Any street magician can explain how she pulled that one off, but these people completely believed she had some magical powers from the spirit realm, and thus they should listen to her. She buried a cup and saucer in the ground before, somehow manipulated these people there, and then said, I will show you that there's a cup and saucer buried there. And they're going like, why would there ever be why would you bury a cup and saucer in the ground? It has to be magic, because it wouldn't be there. Man, fucking watch Mind Freak. Watch these street magicians and tell me how they do it. It's magic, but it's not magic. They know how to fucking... She did too.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
She would be a fucking Chris Angel kind of character if she could really like get her shit together and like, you know, market herself and monetize herself. What's interesting is I don't think it was about money. She inherited a shit ton of money, first of all, so she had money.
It was about specialness.
It was about feeling special.
Yeah.
And again, she was raised by female role models who at the time taught her to not accept her lot in life. But then she was cast into a world where her lot in life was pretty much accepted by 99% of everyone. And so it's very hard to fight against that. And so, I don't know.
Yeah.
And for that, I applaud her because she fucking did it. Good for her. I mean, she died happy, and I'm glad for that. I don't hate this woman. I think she's impressive. But I also think it is a warning to us that we need to be careful what we believe and really look at the people who are selling it to us, because it's not new. Whoever's telling you something, it's not new.
Yeah.
And it's designed to pull you specifically. And if that's the case, then you need to really push back and go, what the fuck is happening?
What I've learned is like, you can't resist being part of anything and everything.
No.
But you can take what is good for you while being critical of what's not.
Right.
And not fully surrendering and going in like a complete like follower, disciple, believer.
Yeah. You know what? Towards the end, hold that thought, because towards the end, we're going to talk about some things. We're going to talk about some things, and there's going to, and that's a great point, and we need to talk about that.
Okay.
So we will.
All right.
And I'll bring it up again when we get there, just to make sure. Okay. So anyway, she's conning all these stupid white people in India. They're like, oh, woo! They're in this land of mystery where they see these temples and gods that they've never seen before, and they hear people speaking languages and smells and food. I mean, the sensual experience of being in a foreign land makes you really susceptible to mystery, and I love it. It's like anything's possible, because to them it's like a Tuesday, you know, because they grew up in all this shit and they've smelled the incense from the temple and they've seen the fucking monks walk by and they've heard the sounds of the songs of the whatever. But to you, you're like primed, and so these white people are in this land of mystery, and all of a sudden this mysterious woman who's white, so hey, she's probably as smart as me. These brown people aren't. But I mean, this white person is. And she's Russian. So kind of like, ooh, exotic white person, kind of. Because these are British people for sure. So they're all fucking like, you know, weird dental situations and just, you know. And she's captivating all of these, you know, British colonists, right? On this mission from the masters. So it's during this time the masters become the Mahatmas, as she blended the Hindu belief she was picking up around her with her philosophy that was still pretty loosely defined. So she's still putting this thing together, but now she's in India and she's hearing all this Hindu shit. And so the masters become the Mahatmas, which is, you know, a Hindu kind of Indian word. And so, you know, she's fucking like bringing some flavor in, you know. Like, on one occasion, a woman approached Helena because she wanted to talk to the Mahatmas. The result would be 1,400 pages of divine communication supposedly transmitted through Helena. The text would be edited into book form and released as esoteric Buddhism. Buddhist scholars rejected it as, quote, not Buddhism, but to be fair, she didn't choose the final title and pretty quickly made her disappointment with it known publicly. The publishing company was taking advantage of a hot new interest in philosophies from the East and branded the book accordingly. So I don't blame her for this. She did not want to call it this. Again, she would not have associated with herself in anything. She's starting something fucking new because she has the truth.
Yeah.
Like
she doesn't want to be absorbed in a group.
Right,
she's like, no,
right.
No.
It started with spiritualism is true, but we're going to tell you the real spiritualism and now go and say it. And now she's kind of Hinduized it because she's over in India. So all of a sudden, it's not really spiritualism. It's more like Hinduism mixed with a bunch of like just nonsense that she's cobbling together. And so people were like really into those kinds of things, and they're like, oh, let's call it like esoteric Buddhism because people are super into that real word. And she's like, no, I didn't want to call it that. And it's true, she didn't. That's not her fault. She wasn't trying to like take advantage of Buddhists or anything. The publishing company was. So like when I'm saying I'm not blaming her, because there's a billion of hers selling you shit every single fucking day.
Yeah.
She is human. There are humans. But for some reason, when people are selling spiritual stuff and start a cult, we judge that as bad, but it's okay when people are doing it and they're selling us a bunch of nonsense just to get our money. I'm saying they're equally fucking something to be pushed back against, and maybe we need to like confront. Not that we're not going to buy their shit, but don't let them fucking make you buy their shit is all I'm saying.
It's interesting if you're selling like spiritual shit as opposed to like a physical, let's say supplements. That listen.
Those go hand in hand, don't they?
Yeah, well, listen. They both work by means of placebo effect in your mind. But one you actually think you're getting a physical thing, and the other is just words in your mind.
Yeah.
Which is more. Is it the same?
Yeah. Actually, sometime this year, probably in the summer, we're going to do an episode on the placebo effect.
Okay.
I think a lot of people misunderstand the placebo effect.
Oh, okay.
They think that, you heal yourself. That's not the placebo effect. It is a psychological thing. Mm-hmm. It is not a physiological thing. And we'll talk about that. But yes, it is a placebo effect. It is convincing yourself that you got better.
Yeah.
And you didn't. Like, we'll talk about it. You look at me like you're all, because Marnee is a sucker. So she believes it's like, but I read in Elephant Journal that the placebo effect is just as good as a vaccine. No, people don't listen to that. Get the fucking shot. Get yourself protected scientifically against a virus that is a scientific thing that exists on this planet. Do not listen to people saying you can think yourself into immunity from this because the placebo effect is real.
Chris and I have different minds.
Very. God.
This is why this is a good balance.
That's why I read the books and write all these, because I'm like, hold on. Marnee be like, listen to this thing I learned. Every episode would be a new cult
to believe
that we belong to.
Oh, yeah. No, okay. Yeah. I'm not going to go off on placebo because we should do an episode on that.
We will.
My brain goes,
Yeah. Because you've been told a bunch of stuff by people who are selling you IT. They're like, you don't need those drugs. Don't get the pharmaceutical drugs. The placebo effect shows that you can heal yourself. So buy our vitamins. You're like, wait a minute. Shouldn't I just wait? If I can heal myself, why do I need your shit?
Well,
anyway, we need to move on because this is not the topic, but we are going to do an episode, so we will talk about this because it's a scientific thing that's understood scientifically.
Yeah, they use placebos,
but that has nothing to do with what people say.
So I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
Okay, good. Remember that whole adrenochrome thing? How science has one picture and everything? Same fucking thing. Okay, people abuse this idea of the placebo effect.
Okay, go on.
Anyway, I'm getting all hot now. Jeez, I don't want to get hot. Okay, cool down. It's always Sunny in Philadelphia thing too. Like, I'm hot again. I'm hot. Okay. Okay, so where was that? Let's see. By May of 1880, Helena, Henry, and Babala, her young Indian servant, find themselves in a Buddhist ashram in India where they officially convert. Theosophists to this day claim Helena and Henry were the first Westerners to ever be allowed to convert to Buddhism. Historians rate this idea as, quote, not a chance. Okay, listen, especially in 2020/2021, when someone comes to you and says, I'm the first person to ever, or I'm the only person to ever, they're lying. That is gone. We can never, ever be that person again. Everything's been fucking done. In the Old Testament of the fucking Bible, which even if you just say, okay, let's say it was written 2,500 years ago, right? It says there's nothing new under the sun. They already understood. We are all just recycling nonsense, recontextualizing it, giving it new language, new vocabulary, selling it as something new, and then a bunch of people will buy it, and then it wears out, and we got to move on because our outward context changed. We've got to switch it up because no one cares about that shit anymore. They got new shit they're on that we got to take advantage of.
Yes.
That is the way my mind works, okay? Is that is what's happening. And I accept that. And I don't say that we're not going to get rid of that. That is being human. I'm saying be aware of it and be taken in by, question shit that makes you fucking do crazy shit is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
If something says separate from your family because of this, question that shit.
Yeah.
If someone says dump your husband or wife because of the shit, question that shit.
Wait a second,
That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to come to the same.
I had to separate from my family in my change of belief.
Listen to me. I'm not saying that you're going to make a different decision. I'm saying question it. If the pull is from this stuff, at least question it. Maybe you'll still come to that decision and that was fine. But a lot of times what's happening is you're being convinced something that maybe isn't reality, and then you're going to do damage that didn't need to be done. That's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. That's hard.
It is super hard.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's easy.
That's not an easy answer.
Yeah, I know. My moon's in Aquarius. That's just how it is. All these people are like, bullshit. Whatever. I can tell you about it. And you can see. If you spend time with me, I explain it, and you'd be like, oh, weird. Because I thought the same thing.
Yes.
Like, I started studying astrology going like, okay, let's look at this fucking stupid bullshit. Mm-hmm. And I totally feel that way a little bit in the way that people use it. I don't use it at all like you've seen out there or Instagram shit or whatever. But I do think it's useful and kind of interesting. Anyway, the Buddhists in India had their own struggle and fight against colonialism, and she was brought into their good graces through her alignment with them over the British. She was even investigated by British intelligence as a potential Russian spy trying to stir shit up.
Oh, I can imagine.
True story.
Yeah,
yeah, that's a true story. Mm-hmm. So she's over there like this white European, technically, person.
Yeah.
And she's like hanging out with all these people that are trying to throw off European colonial rule and shit.
She's Russian, right?
Yeah, she's Russian. Yeah. But I mean, she's white.
I know, but I'm saying
they didn't give a shit back then if you're a Russian or French or English.
I'm talking about the English being suspicious of her because she's Russian.
Yes. So, and they would be like, oh, so Russia's trying to just like, they want India. Mm-hmm. So they're fucking with our affairs so that we will get a thrash and they'll move in. Which they probably were doing that, but not through Helena. That. But because she was so cozy with them, she was accused of that. Mm-hmm. They never tried her, and she wasn't arrested ever or anything. But they did. There was suspicion.
And excuse me. It's interesting. Okay, so that she comes in and is against colonialism, but she's Russian. That's her origins. She would naturally go in that direction.
Yes. And again, I don't know how much she cared.
No, I'm not saying from a cared point. I'm just saying the directions, if you're just working from subconscious and you're just like going, you're going to land in base programming. So
why do you think that she would have picked that then?
Because she wasn't English. And so she wasn't in support. And
right. So she wouldn't have banded with the British because she didn't have that connection.
But if she was English and gone there, she probably wouldn't have chosen to be against colonialism.
Yeah, probably not.
It would have been ingrained in her. She wouldn't even have questioned it.
That's a good point. It did give her that. It did give her that ability to like go, hey,
she was white, but she was outside of it culturally.
She's not technically one of us, but she's enough of one of us that this is weird to us and making us question like where her loyalties lie. Mm-hmm. Right. Because they shouldn't be with these darker people, which is kind of exactly what England was thinking. So she would walk around encouraging the locals to embrace their Buddhist and Hindu roots. They loved these weird white people who were super down with what they were doing. They had never experienced such a thing, and they loved it. They did.
Yeah. I can
you fucking would.
Yeah.
And this is where I'm like, okay, even if this was some subconscious way for her to like continue the grift or even conscious way, she did fight on their behalf. She did join with a marginalized, disenfranchised population against their fucking like undeserving overlords that just moved in because they could. There was no reason for them to be there. They didn't need to own that other than they wanted to rape the natural resources and the fucking people, basically. And so for that, fucking go, Helena. I think you're fucking awesome. And that's one of the things I really respect about her is she was a counterculturalist to the fucking end. Like, as a woman, as a white person, as a privileged person. I mean, yeah, she did shady shit like fucking take a goddamn Indian servant, and she was a product of her time.
Yeah.
While she was providing moral support to the Indians, she herself lived in a fancy bungalow in the British part of the city with Henry and her young Indian servant boy.
Yeah.
So, you know, she's down with the cause, but like, you know, to a point. We've seen this before, okay? Also, there had been a ton of politicking, controversy, and internal intrigue within the Theosophical Society in India. It was during this time that she picked up her nemesis, Emma Coulomb. I think that's how you say it, Coulomb. It's Coulomb, Coulomb. Her maiden name was Cutting, and she actually got involved with Helena early on when she was Emma Cutting, got married in the meantime. So now she's Emma Coulomb. And they had a past. Emma had gotten busted before. So remember how we talked about how there had been some controversy because some people in the group were faking?
Yeah.
Okay. Emma was caught up in that. Yeah, totally. She totally was. And you know, that caused some beef. But there seemed to be like this soft spot in Helena for Emma for some reason. And so even though they had this kind of like tension in the past and they kind of parted ways because of this stuff, she welcomes her back in, right? So despite these past issues, she brings her back in, allows her to, you know, join the circle of theosophists there in India, and they even acted as her like personal assistants and confidants, right? Like her inner circle almost, like she kept them close. Probably because she needed to watch them.
Yeah.
Her and her husband Pierre is his name, Coulomb. But also it does seem like there was some kind of love. I don't know if it was like a mother-daughter thing. She never had children, so maybe it kind of was that kind of instinct to like mother her. I don't know.
Yeah.
Emma later claimed that Helena was party to the faked seances and spiritual communication. This is totally possible, but there's also some reasonable doubt here as beef definitely developed between the two of them. Emma was pretty schemy, and Helena was notorious for her enraged outbursts towards her followers that occurred often. Right? So she's like, you know, the Mahatmas, these ascended consciousness, are speaking to her, and then I guess she would just fucking berate people. But I mean, she's a narcissist. She's a, you know, that's what they do. That's part of the way they control you is you don't know what they're going to do. Yeah. And so you fucking watch yourself. And you especially pay attention to them at all times. Yeah. You know? So, you know, there was kind of like, there's a way you could go question this and go like, well, Emma just fucking didn't like Helen because she was a bitch to her, you know, whatever. And then, you know, the same thing. So there is motive to slander Helena. There is also direct evidence, though, that Helena was caught in America faking spiritualist phenomenon. Again, probably leading to her leaving America when she said, I don't want to live here anymore. Right. Yeah. And so, you know, who the fuck knows? While Helena was sometime later, while Helena was away from the Theosophical Lodge in India, Emma and Pierre tried to stir some shit up and blackmail Helena. There are also accusations made towards Emma around embezzled money. Seeing these two will always cause a shitstorm, Helena dismisses them and sends them away, and they are super pissed off, right? And so they do seem to be these little schemers. You know, like we've seen this movie. You know, there's always those people that are just always trying to fuck shit. You know, just do some shit and pull off a scheme and a little caper. And they seem to be those people. And so now she's like, you know what? Can't have you guys around, and fucking, you know, dismisses them. Again, she's prone to outrage, so it wasn't probably like, see ya, you know. In 1884, Emma and Pierre get in touch with some missionary friends in country from the Church of Scotland. So they're in India, you know, on mission. Emma hands them a stack of letters that she says are from Helena to her, giving instructions on how and when to produce the spiritual phenomena. The papers wind up being printed in a newspaper operating out of a Christian college in Scotland, causing significant controversy around Helena and theosophy, right? And so Emma's like, oh yeah, I'll get back at you. Within a few months, the Society for Psychical Research, which was they kind of researched paranormal claims and they're like the forerunner to like all these UFO societies and people that go out and independent investigators who go out and try and like capture pictures of ghosts and shit like that. So the Society for Psychical Research, they released a report by one of their investigators. His name was Richard Hodgson, and it was pretty damning and did a ton of damage to Helena in Europe, India, and America. Quote, this is from the report. What's been called the Hodgson Report. It says, quote, for our part, we regard her, Helena, as neither the mouthpiece of hidden seers nor as a mere vulgar adventuress. We think that she has achieved a title to permanent remembrance as one of the most accomplished, ingenious, and interesting imposters in history. It's an interesting quote because on one hand, I'm like, fuck you, because he kind of throws out his bias there when he tries to call her a vulgar adventuress. Like that woman and like you live like a man, you don't, And so you're like, fuck you. But notice when he goes to describe her, he says accomplished, ingenious, and interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's an imposter and she's making shit up, but I do still see that pull. Like he still is like
intrigued.
But I'm not, like there. It's interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, that report was published in 1885. Today, there's all kinds of modern drama and controversy around this report. So today, the SBR, which still exists, and like all those kinds of organizations, it totally depends on who's fucking in it and leading it, that the tone of it, whether they're like super over here believers and woo, or whether they're over here super skeptical or somewhere, And so now they try and backtrack on this report. Probably because of pressure from people or whatever, but a lot because, I don't know, they're trying to be scientific and they're like, we don't know if this was scientific, whatever. It didn't matter. Even if you take out the shit that they have questions about, it still exposed her as a fraud, and he was still right. So it's this weird thing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why I'm saying that other than I searched on the internet and got deep into these forum discussions where nerds are like debating whether we should accept this report. But all of them are agreeing that Helena was a fraud and like made it all up. But we're going to debate about whether this report is good or not. Based on, I'm like, what the fuck is happening? It was very confusing. I kept thinking, I'm going to find something in here. And that's like after hours and hundreds of comments, I'm like, nope.
Nothing.
Nope. And some of these comments, there was like, I don't know, 6 people commenting and 1,000 of comments. So it took up a lot of time for some people. It wasn't like sporadic shit. They spent hours doing this. So by 1885, Helena's health begins to fail and she needs to get back to Europe. She winds up in London in 1887. She establishes a Theosophical Lodge there, but more controversy and politics ensue, leading her to form the Blavatsky Lodge, an inner circle with members who were approved by her alone and only after passing a series of tests. She's like, you know what? I'm tired of all you motherfuckers. It was like when we left the church, we were still believers technically, and there was a lot of people trying to get us to like start a church, and we thought, no, that will just draw a bunch of people who go to church, and we don't want to be around people who go to church right now. So no. And so she like starts an inner circle where she's like, hey, you know what? There's going to be no spiritual phenomena anymore. First of all, she's been busted too many times. She had to separate from this. So it was like, I want the people who want to sit and talk about bullshit and not people who want to see chairs float or like hear from the spirits.
Yeah.
And so, it's called the Blavatsky Lodge. It's like the inner circle, and you can only get in there if she gives you the pass, and you got to like go through her little like, obstacle course, her like spiritual esoteric obstacle course. It must have been so crazy. Just throwing a question at you, like, Anyway, it was for like real theosophists, in other words. You get the feeling she knew all the demonstration was fake because she distances herself from it quite a bit from here on out. She never gets involved in any of the like physical manifestation shit anymore. That's what drew the crowds. Mm-hmm. And but she keeps causing her problems, and so she's like, shit. In 1888, she releases Lucifer magazine, naming it that to weed out the weak-minded and superstitious who would be afraid of such a name.
That's
right
on, what you do. That's how you do it.
I love that. I'm like, dude, I wish I met her just to be like, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Because All the idiots.
Yeah.
Jesus
Say
Christ.
Satanism and they'll be like,
oh, yeah. Everyone
it.
just loses their mind. You're like, Satanists don't believe in Satan, right?
Yeah.
Only you do. Like,
let me keep
Yeah.
you away from me by claiming Satan.
yeah, it's all these Jesusists that we got to worry about, apparently. Also, in 1888, she releases a 1,500-page tome called The Secret Doctrine. No one could be found to publish such a massive book, so she founded the Theosophical Publishing Company and released it in 2 volumes, right? She's motivated. You have to give her this, like, she takes initiative. Like, she makes shit happen.
Yeah.
I don't know if she has, like, dream boards, if she's got, she's manifesting. I don't know what's happening, but she's like, no one will publish my book? Well,
I'll do it.
make a publishing company, because how hard can that be? But again, she's super manipulative and like stuff like that. So, you just got to find the right. Oh, and she has Henry Olcott too, who was in the publishing biz. He was a journalist and in that whole game. So I'm sure there was some way she made it happen. So The Secret Doctrine, it's actually 2 volumes. It's 1,500 pages. She's prolific also, right? And it's in 2 volumes. And the first volume is called Cosmogenesis, which means like the creation of the universe, right? Where she tells you how the universe was created in 1888, by the way. So I don't know why we're even still looking. It's right there. I don't know what the fuck all these schools are teaching all this stuff. When all we got to do is drop this huge ass book on people's desks. And the volume 2 is Anthropogenesis, which is like goes over the origins and evolution of mankind, which was a huge topic at the time. Darwinian evolution was this new hot thing, and there was so little known other than the seed of an idea that did have evidence that showed that we were on the right track, which left this huge
wide open.
Oh my God.
Kind of what happened with the whole quantum physics.
Yeah. We'll talk. So next episode, we're going to talk about volume 2. And we're going to talk about her little story of how we got here, because it is fucking awesome. And it also then leads us into the darker shit of like some of the influence that, some of the legacy of her bullshit that she would not love. And we all use as markers of, the worst things we've ever done. Yeah. And I know we're going to talk about that. And because that's true. But in the next episode, we're going to talk about her whole theory of, and it's fucking great. I mean, it's great if you look at it from this perspective of just like, let's just read this as like science fiction, and it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
So also remember, so she releases the fucking Secret Doctrine in this giant book in 1888. November of 1888, Maggie and Kate Fox reveal the whole thing that they fucking faked it, and that they were making it all up.
Yeah, okay.
And that they feel super guilty for, this whole thing.
Yeah.
So like things are sticky around spiritualism. It's like there's a lot of public like, hey, negative press basically, but she's trying to sell this shit. And not only that, spiritualism is true, but she's got the true spiritualism, right? The real deal, because it came from the fucking masters. I mean, the Mahatmas. Maybe if she would have lived long enough, they would have become something else. I don't know, but that's how she died. They were the Mahatmas.
Okay.
So Helena dies on May 8th, 1891, a date still celebrated by Theosophists and New Age spiritual folks as White Lotus Day. In the wake of her death, factions grew in the society and splinters formed. The 2 main groups competing for control were lined up behind some prominent theosophical leaders. Eventually, the disputes became too much, and the society broke in 2. One group, primarily focused on India, was led by Henry Olcott, along with a member and confidant of Helena's named Annie Besant. They named their new group Theosophical Society Adyar, establishing the headquarters in the city of Chennai, India, where it still is today. The other group was aligned with a founding member of the society named William Quall Judge. He was in the room when they founded the society in New York City and was responsible for the organization and development of the American branch of it while Helena was in India, right?
Okay.
So he was a part of that, the like little nerdy group, the Miracle Club, who met, remember? And then they decided we need to make this a little better. And so they decided to found this organization. And so he was in there when they named it. He's like OG, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's this dispute, right? This always happens, right? As soon as a leader dies, if they don't appoint someone specifically,
there's a war.
Yeah, and then shit always goes wrong, good times.
Yeah.
So the split occurred after William Judge. He's the guy that he was the guy that was in the room when they named the whatever. Presented some messages he had received from the masters. He's like, hey, guess what? The masters are talking to me now. Weird. Helena's not here. They must choose me. I mean, whatever. I didn't know. I wasn't expecting this, but I'll take it. I mean, I think that's cool that they chose me. I must be really special. And then he goes, it seems he was ready to step into the role of mouthpiece for the galactic spirits, and their stamp of approval was clearly upon him. Annie Besant, however, was not fucking having it and accused him of forging these messages, which he did. Just like Helena did.
Yeah.
Because they aren't real. Both naturally made claims about how they were the real Theosophy and lobbed shade at each other for not being the true messengers of Helena's magical wisdom. Annie Besant, though, was a very interesting character. She was born into a modest household in London, but as a young girl, was given over to a wealthy spinster. That's what it says in all the things. I'm always like, can we not say that? How about just a wealthy lady, woman? Just why do we got to do that? Anyway, a wealthy woman for her upbringing and education due to her single mother not being able to afford her or control her precocious nature. She's a handful, right? Which are the best. I got one of them. You're a handful. The old lady brought her up with the highest education and a strict evangelical belief and ethical system. Despite this, and despite being married off to a preacher at 19, she was in no way the kind of personality that took kindly to submitting to a man who was assumed to be smarter, more reasonable, or better than her. She was not down with that.
No.
I also have one of those. Her life, especially her early life, was spent bucking pretty much every expectation and limitation that was placed on women in the Victorian era. She worked in Britain to bring about change in laws around marriage and the entrapment of women they represented. She wore short skirts, short hair, and other styles considered trampy and unladylike at the time. One of her major arenas was fighting for women to have access to birth control. Okay, so she's like definitely on the vanguard of these kinds of issues. Mm-hmm. This is fucking 19th century. Mm-hmm. This is when the Victorian era where people don't talk about sex. Yeah. Sex is vilified. It's sin. It's not anything that you, whatever. So Annie Besant, so she does marry a preacher, but she doesn't stay married to him because he was this really harsh personality, this authoritarian kind of guy that demanded that he submit to her, that she submit to his will. And she actually did work alongside him, and he did allow her to have almost an equality with her in the sense of her involvement in the community and stuff. Like she ran shit and stuff. Mm-hmm. She definitely did things that women typically weren't necessarily doing. You wouldn't expect that, right? Uh-huh. Like splitting almost some of the responsibilities of the man pastor with his wife, which was weird. Today, that's not as much, but back then I was like, what the fuck? But eventually she's just like, she has this free-thinking liberal soul.
Yeah, and if you give a woman an inch, she'll take it and more. So you can't. That was his first problem.
That was his first problem. He let her out of the house. If you let them out of the house,
her too much.
Jesus, seriously. We laugh, but that's kind of their thinking at the time, to a large degree. Was like, oh, hey, what are you doing out of the house? Hey, I can see your ankles, and all of a sudden,
people still think that today.
Yeah, your ankle gave me a boner. You must be evil. You hussy.
She wore short. It said, I'm sorry. It said she wore short skirts, and I'm just wondering what that means. How short?
That's relative. I don't know, mid calf. But at the time, that was fucking scandalous as balls. That was just like, oh, you must be naked. Yeah, what a weird time. But meanwhile, there's like I think it was around this time when there's like doctors like fucking fingering women medically, and there's dudes inventing fucking dildos and shit. Yeah, it was also, sex was obviously still there. It was just under the surface.
Because when you try to suppress a natural drive, it goes crazy in weird ways.
Yeah, fucking crazy.
Duh.
So she's out there really flaunting convention, which is cool. I mean, we're gonna see it gets complicated, but anyway. But one of the things, I mean, I didn't really look into this as a whole subject, but I'm assuming this was on the very front end of the birth control fight.
Right.
You know,
I don't remember that. When did we say Dorothy Sayers was?
That was like in the 1900s, right? This is 1880s or
right. So it's
70s.
Coming up. It's runner up.
It is, but it's decades before her.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying is like she's like on the early edge, right?
Yeah, but women were dealing with birth control.
Totally.
Their ovaries existed.
I'm just saying. And there were.
We just started telling you guys about it. Apparently.
Yeah. Maybe I should say this.
For some reason, asking for permission. Fuck off.
Maybe I should say this. Like, yeah, really. Why was that ever even a debate we're having?
What did they say? Don't ask for rights that are yours. Tell them how you're going to be treated.
Yeah, really. You're like, hey, can you treat me like you think you deserve? Fucking crazy.
That's not a question. That's a expectation.
Yeah, crazy. But anyway, she was out there.
Yes,
she's out. What I'm saying is, she had balls. Like, I shouldn't say that. She had a really, really great set of female reproductive organs because. You can imagine the pushback she got in society when she's out there just saying this shit, and what people said about her.
It was interesting to me that she was given over to this. She had a single mom, and she was given over to this quote unquote spinster, but single woman,
no kids,
wealthy single woman who probably had her ideas because she didn't marry, she didn't submit herself to a man in that age and time when you should, and so. Sounds like she got some good thinking instilled in her.
She's like, and so why should I let him tell me when I should have a fucking baby or not? Yeah, exactly. She, along with a dude who was down with her cause, published, I don't know what happened with, I don't know if he was just, like, I call myself a feminist. What I mean is I totally support feminists. I don't know if I can say I'm a feminist because I'm immediately suspect of, there just has to be ulterior motives behind it. I don't know. I mean, I just don't trust dudes. But I'm always like, she, along with the dude, I'm like, he's like, yeah, what's he doing? I want to be able to fuck all these girls and have them getting pregnant, like, or something. Anyway. So they're fighting for this birth control right now. It was pretty much focused on some thinking that was developed and thought reasonable in line with the context of this era. And this era was also suffused with a lot of racial theory. I mean, there was literally like what they considered scientific disciplines called like racialism and stuff. And this is like times of phrenology where they're measuring your head, and they would take like, well, these people from Africa, if you look at their measurements, well, they're clearly dumber than us, and they're not capable the same as Europeans who have this perfect thing, this would lead to things like, well, I mean, literally at this time, eugenics, when we're talking about, well, let's keep these undesirables from breeding with, that kind of shit is buzzing around the scientific community, right?
Well, if that's what they already believed, so they're trying to prop it up with science.
Right.
And that they would even like go there for trying. Yeah. It's just...
But it's a lot of pseudoscience. It's been relegated to pseudoscience. All this shit was bullshit. But at the time, the world is like kind of like, and these are new ideas in a world of new ideas are coming at them hot and fast, right? And so they're ready for anything. So these pamphlets that they would put out, they were full of what's called Malthusian principle kind of thinking, and the Malthusian ideas are, we need to control. It's like this: food production happens linearly, right? Like we grow crops, we harvest crops, and then we have to grow more crops, and it's just like a linear growth. Human population is exponential, and so we have a problem there. We're gonna run out of food. And so we need to control human population. But it always wound up going like, and by human population, we mean the dark people, the Jews, you know, like that's what I meant. The poor, the infirm, the, you know, whatever, undesirables in whatever their culture considered undesirable, right? And so it became this justification for some really fucking ugly shit. And so people don't hold, I mean, nice, normal people don't hold to these principles anymore, right? But at the time, that was kind of part of their vibe. So it's not like Planned Parenthood would put this out today. They would not.
No.
Right? But it was still super progressive and radical for this particular time.
I think that people that are against it, birth control and abortion, still pull from that stuff, that thinking.
Absolutely.
And say that's what it's about.
No, absolutely. I mean, they do, right? It's still exactly. Like a class fucking bigotry. I don't know.
I mean, I'm saying when I've heard people talk against birth control and against abortion, they reference that it's from this.
Oh, they're saying that's why we should not have it because
they're saying that's the motive. They're saying that's the motive because it was back there. So they're honestly looking at history and going, this is what it's founded in, and we can't do this now. Yeah. So they like feel fully justified.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of logical fallacies involved in that thinking. That conclusion that they're coming to, where it's like, well, because it was tied to this, then it's got to be bad. Well, no, you're right. I'm agreeing with you. Like, that's what they would say is like, we shouldn't be doing this because it came from this thinking of they're just trying to like control the population and reduce the population even, and you know
they're going conspiratorial about it.
Exactly.
Which everyone needs to fucking stop with fucking conspiracies.
Right.
Making my head explode.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is just because it was birth control was tied to that does not mean birth control equals that. That just happened to be the.
No, whatever. I know. Yeah. I was just saying, people. This like if someone uses this argument, you can know. Yeah, they are pointing to a historical fact, but that doesn't still mean that it's currently. Yeah,
but nobody thinks that anymore, and yet they still want birth control. So what are we going to do with that? Like no one's saying that we should do it because of that anymore. You're saying they did that 50 years ago. All right. Okay, so, however, it also explained the physiology of sex and conception in a simple to understand language and provided guidance and direction regarding forms of birth control that were in use at the time. None of which we would likely enjoy using today. But I mean, this was, again, really socially radical. You did not talk about this stuff, right?
Yeah. And again, women were doing it since women existed. Mm-hmm. And we just passed it on woman to woman, and it was definitely an unspoken thing, but they're just talking about it openly.
Yeah. Men are like, what do I care about birth control? I take what I want and then walk away. I'm fine. You know, like they had all the power. So there was women were literally, their lives could be taken away because of, you know, just having kids all the time because they can't fucking, you know, have any reliable way to keep that and be able to plan that and say, I want to have a kid 2 years from now and not, you know, that kind of stuff wasn't really a reality for them. And so this was like out there. In response, they were promptly both arrested by the government and tried for obscenity. Again, that's the culture. Of course, like most such attempts, this only caused interest in the little booklet to explode. They went from selling around 700 copies a year to 125,000 the year of their trial. Like they went from like, we sold 700. Can you believe this? Next thing you're like, wait, how many did they want? Holy shit, we got to start printing these things. They were both acquitted and released. However, she lost custody of her daughter for 10 years as punishment for her audacity.
Horrible.
Yeah. The world of men would still wield power over her, right? It's like, fucking what? Can you imagine? How vindictive is that?
It's
like
ugly.
you're innocent, but we're still going to punish you.
It's so ugly.
You're still, and it's not just punishment. It's like agonizing, unnatural, fucking sadistic. I don't know. That just is what. And that was the government. That's like the fucking officials. This isn't like just people in the village, going nuts.
Was she in London at the time?
Yeah. From social activist, she transformed into a political one, becoming a devout socialist. So this is like when Karl Marx's shit is hitting the fucking scene, and socialism is just like, this is the answer to human civilization, and all our problems will be gone if we just do this, right? We've had tons of these, and this was this one, right? Now it's what everyone's afraid of, but back then it was like, oh, woo, socialism, fuck yeah. So she gets super into this. You can kind of sense in her a seeking an identity, because she does hop from very different things from one to the other, almost like she has no real ideology. She's seeking one, but wherever she goes, man, she throws herself. She's out there. She's in front, right? Which, it's kind of impressive. Again, at a time when women weren't doing that much, especially not in the mixed world of, the greater world. You could do that with women, or whatever, and that's fine. Men didn't give a shit. But when you're out there doing stuff that's men have to watch, that's a different thing. She spent this time tapping into her gift for public speaking, and she rallied crowds around issues concerning domestic and foreign policies, particularly those impacting, abusing, and holding down women. At this point, she's an atheist and trying to make real change in society, devoted to the socialist ideal that had just hit the scene, right? And so she's like, well, right on. This is what I'm about.
Yeah.
But again, you can see she's still like women. I love that. Like she clearly always, maybe that's her guiding light, is just freeing women in whatever capacity she finds herself. And maybe she doesn't need an ideology to latch onto. I don't know. Maybe that's cool. But so now she's a socialist saying, fucking look at our laws and look what we're exporting through our colonial bullshit. All this stuff that we still hear today, you know? And she finds out that, man, people like hearing me talk. I can whip people up into a thing. And so she's out there and she's kind of doing the whole thing and fucking having a good old time. Then, while writing for the Pall Mall, which is like a British monthly literary magazine that was published back then, she was given an assignment to read and review a new book from some weird lady called The Secret Doctrine. That 1,500-page book, by the way. Hey, can you review this? Drops on your desk. You're like, what the fuck is that? They're like, oh, that's just part one. Hold on. Here's the other one. You're like, whoa. Just 1,500 pages of like gibberish. But so she was given an assignment to read and kind of review this shit. It captivated her. I don't know why, but she's just like, whoa. It's like people who read The Secret and just like, oh, that's it. My life is this from now on. And now they sold it at a garage sale. But she soon was able to meet Helena in person and became instantly fascinated and devoted to her. Again, Helena's got that kind of vibe, Yeah. And by 1898, she is a fanatical theosophist, officially joining the society and quickly getting involved, helping Helena edit Lucifer magazine. So she quickly gets on board and inserts herself. In fact, there's some evidence that people are like, what the fuck? This lady just joined. She doesn't know shit. And all of a sudden she's fucking helping Helena do stuff. There's a little bit of what's going on? But she was just kind of that person. It's if I'm going to be here, I'm not going to be answering phone calls. Fuck off. There was no phones back then. But I mean, the equivalent. I'm not doing office work. I want to be, impacting stuff. I want to be out there seeing it happen, kind of stuff. And she was super enthralled with Helena, so she wanted to be around her all the time. The two were so close, when Helena breathed her last breath, she was resting comfortably and being taken care of in the personal home of Annie Besant. However, soon Annie began claiming that, like Helena, she too was now receiving ancient wisdom from the masters. Along with Henry Olcott, she took the reins of the original society and moved it to India, with Annie settling permanently there in 1898. And so now she's hearing from the masters, and they're just talking to everybody, And, like I said, her and Henry take it. And remember, fucking Helena had a big focus on India. One, I think I got her out of the United States.
Yeah.
And like we talked about last episode, like...
Seems to be where everybody goes to escape when they've done shitty stuff is India, Bali. My friend's yoga teacher just like was shitty in California, and all of a sudden she's sold everything and moved to Bali, and she's going to continue over there. And
yeah, it feels like the other side of the world. Like, I'm going to be a different person.
Yeah,
here,
just start over.
Next thing you know, you're like
and
demanding the bartender make your drink better.
That Bikram guy too, like.
Oh yeah,
they just like are fucking awful, and then they go to those countries over there and keep doing it.
Yeah. Poor India. We're just exporting the worst. Like our most failed and incapable cult leaders end up in India, and they have to deal with those motherfuckers. And I was like, God, another white guy showed up here.
They're taking a bunch of our jobs too, so.
All right. We'll just trade it for that. Yeah. Just to think you think Marnie's like some anti-immigrant thing. They took my job, okay? And they didn't come here. They didn't even come here to do it. They didn't have to immigrate.
Our country sent his job there and gave it to them.
The American company I work for decided it's cheaper to do that than it is to pay this guy over here. So awesome.
They even had him train his replacement 6 months before they let him go.
Yeah, that was nice. I just thought, hey, we're helping you out. And they're like, oh, no, we're replacing you. Sorry. They did that literally surprise one day, 15 seconds. My life was like, all right. So, fuck you. Not India.
And there's that.
I don't give a shit. I mean, they're just doing their thing. What am I supposed to say? But fuck you, American corporation who did that, because we're not going to get into that. It's in the past. Okay. Where was I? Okay. With her newfound faith and belief, she now held disdain for her previous crusades, however. She recanted her previous ideas about birth control, and after unsuccessfully getting it taken off shelves, bought and destroyed every copy she could find. And she's just like, I don't believe in that anymore. I'm a theosophist now. Well, I mean, I was a socialist for a while in between when I was a birth control advocate, but now I'm a theosophist and I don't believe in that anymore, and I need you to take it down. They're like, dude, it's selling. Fuck you. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. And
so she's like, fine, I'll buy them. And she probably didn't buy all of them, but she bought every one she ever came across and as many as they would ever sell her, and she destroyed them all, which is committed. She stated her new views in a pamphlet written to get the real truth out. Now she was advocating for population control using good old-fashioned abstinence, stating, quote, the sexual instinct that man has in common with the brute is the most fruitful source of human misery. Under her leadership, the society promoted universal brotherhood, which demanded self-restraint in relationships and sexless marriages. Mm-hmm. So she was like, hey, I still believe in people not having babies for the sake of the planet.
Go about it a different way.
But instead of letting them have sex and choosing not to have a baby as a, consequence, they shouldn't have sex. No sex, no babies. Makes perfect sense. And, that stuff is bad. You see that kind of dualistic, Gnostic kind of idea of like, physical pleasure, material things are evil, whereas
the physical
spiritual
world is bad, the spiritual is better.
That's dualism. Right. That's fucking Star Wars. All the bullshit we've been inundated with these messages that are so cut and dry and like black and white is fucking stupid.
But it's easier for our brains to understand.
Our lives are never black and white. I love how we never have a black and white experience for the most part. I shouldn't say that. There are, of course, black and white experiences. But I mean, in general, our shared experience is not a black and white experience. And yet we still want to talk about how and categorize things in that way. I'm like, you've never, ever fucking lived that way. Yeah. Like, that's never been true. But, whatever. We got to keep going. There are some events in her life that were likely pretty formative in these issues around romantic or sexual relationships in marriage. There's obviously stuff underlying here. She's a human.
Yeah.
But she's also living in a world where women were not respected.
Yeah.
Cherished. supported.
Yeah.
For the most part. Of course there were men doing those things. Of course there were. There always were. But by and large, the
culture,
expectation in society was men were smart, reasonable. They did all the stuff. Women were just there to babble, whatever. And
I don't know. I think
for their pleasure. Pretty bad.
I don't know. I feel like I would lose my mind.
Marnie would have been like, did they invent dynamite yet?
But at the same, I say that now because of who I am now. I have been in the past party to the bullshit.
Right.
So.
Now, because Marnie...
But maybe that's why it makes me crazy.
Marnie
now.
says that. Now, Marnie's never been a person to ever submit to a man, which is part of what drew me to her. But she went through this very long phase in our life, in our marriage, where she was convinced that is the dynamic that should exist. And so she went about trying to force me to make her submit.
Women in those paradigms do.
Well, she refused to submit.
There was so much pretend the woman is the submitted one and pretend the man is in control in so many households that claim that paradigm. So many. I mean, you see it so clearly, and everyone fucking knows it, which is why they're so angry at women, because they fucking know they were in control anyways, even when they're pretending not to be.
They're like, I'm mad because at church I get to pretend that I'm in charge. Let's go to church. Hey, let's never leave. You can't lip off to me here.
I could go on about the man that told you needed to keep track of me and my reading.
No, he said, I know you like to watch what your wife reads. And I'm like, looking at him like, what? No, I don't. What are you talking about? She reads whatever she wants to.
Or he said something about like, you notice that the things that your wife is saying and you need to go check on what she's reading.
Oh, right. Yeah. Like when she's saying stuff that doesn't sound right, that she's reading. Like literally go and like find what subversive literature she has. And like, I'm like, wow, that's like Nazism?
Well,
what are we talking about?
What's funny is that man that said that, I knew someone who was close family friends with them, and they were like, that woman runs that fucking man.
Totally.
And he thinks he's mouthing off in charge, saying like, oh, I can tell her what to read.
Yeah. Notice he brought us into like the soundproof baby room. He said it in case his wife was probably listening around the corner. He's like, oh,
come talk to me here.
So I know that you're in total control of your wife like I am. Did you hear her? Did you? Oh, no, it's not her. But listen. Oh, my God. What a crazy thing. Anyway. Where was I? Oh. So later, so what happens though, like you see some things in her life that may give a clue to like, she had some relationship stuff and her heart was broken and maybe she's processing in this way and it's a way to avoid all of that, right? If you've had issues with romantic entanglements, hey, there's a great way to solve that. No romantic entanglements, right? And so she did fall in love with multiple close associates in her little adventure through all these different groups that she was a major part in. Each time rejected for other women or pushed off as like one of the guys. Remember, she's like forcing herself into this man's world.
Yeah, so she didn't. Yeah,
which maybe like desexualized her in a way that then men didn't respond to. So she declared a love for one guy, for instance, and he simply ghosted her and went hooked up with Karl Marx's youngest daughter. Damn, like. Celebrity. And so, she's like, I love you. And he's like, oh, thanks. And then never saw him again. And next thing you know, she hears he's like banging Karl Marx's daughter. Next, she fell in love with her close friend, playwright George Bernard Shaw, right? Famous dude. Yeah. He told her he only saw her as a friend. So, there are like some human psychological things going on here. And also like, I don't want to like, make up anything, but she was married to a dude, who was like I don't know, maybe she had some negative sexual experiences just because of it wasn't like, oh, how can I make you feel good, baby? What do you need? That wasn't going on in bed. It was like, you're mine. I'll do whatever the fuck I want. And if what he wants is disturbing to her, then I don't know, nothing. I didn't find anything like that. I'm just saying in this world, women didn't necessarily have this super great experience of sex.
Easily imagine she's not fucking interested in this shit.
So there's like psychological and understandable reasons why she would find a way to go, you know what? It's better not to have sex.
Shit, this is shitty.
You know what? Keep your dicks away from me. Yeah.
Fucking assholes.
Hasn't turned out so great so far. And the ones I wanted ran away. So while in India, Annie got super into Indian and Hindu nationalists and freedom causes, just like Helena did, right? She's following in her mentor's footsteps, and she's over there. She's like, oh, I'm going to fight for these people too. And so she gets arrested in 1917 under the Defense of India Act. Her arrest triggered a wave of protests across the nation and even the world, with Woodrow Wilson, President of the United States, and Mahatma Gandhi, we all know him, among those publicly calling for her release, right? She has like big time people.
The big people.
Yeah, these are like the fucking biggest voices in the world, you know, at the time, celebrity-wise. After 3 months, her and her Theosophical compatriots were released. It was in India as well that she adopted a young Indian boy named Jiddu Krishnamurti, a member of the Brahmin caste. So that's the highest caste. This was not like a street urchin that she like scooped up.
Which
and said,
usually
hey.
you wouldn't be able to adopt that caste.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't look into this. I'm sure I could have found more information about this. I didn't really care to. But I don't know the circumstances of how this happened. Maybe his parents had died, or maybe it was just like she ran into him and his parents agreed to let this white weird lady that's got a bunch of people following her raise him. I don't know. So I'm not really sure like how this happened, but she did like actually adopt. I don't know, like we say adopt and we think like a lawyer sat down and they went through. What I meant is she took him under his wing and like basically like said, okay, you're my son now, kind of thing. Leaning into shit hard, Annie became convinced, telling others that her son was the reincarnation of the Buddha. After some time of promoting this idea, she heads out on a world tour in 1908, announcing that he is the next world teacher who will deliver mankind as a new Messiah. And so she, I don't know. I don't know if it's just like, what's the next thing I got to say? Like it's got to build. I don't know what the fuck, why this happens, but she just becomes convinced this kid's special. He's he's the Messiah, essentially. He's destined to free the world.
Yeah.
And so, however, by 1929, he was not into the whole idea of being a world teacher at all, withdrawing from the society and dissolving any groups or clubs specifically created around him at a special gathering of leaders of theosophy.
Her son.
The guy who she's claiming is the world teacher. They created all these inner societies, special societies, places that you had to get to levels to be, involved or connected to this guy who's the world teacher. Yeah. Not everyone, you got to go through levels.
And now he's like, I'm over it.
And he's like, no, I'm not that. Yeah. I don't want to be that. Yeah. And in fact, I'm withdrawing from all this bullshit, and anything that has to do with me, I'm right now dissolving it. You believe I'm the world teacher? As the world teacher, no more. Yeah. That's what he's doing. This guy's baller, by the way. Anyway. I fucking love what he says. And here's the full quote of his message to these people who had turned him into a god, essentially, right? Quote, I maintain that truth is a pathless land, and you cannot approach it by any path whatsoever, by any religion, by any sect. That is my point of view, and I adhere to that absolutely and unconditionally. Truth, being limitless, unconditioned, unapproachable by any path whatsoever, cannot be organized, nor should any organization be formed to lead or coerce people along a particular path. This is no magnificent deed, because I do not want followers. I mean this. The moment you follow someone, you cease to follow truth. I am not concerned whether you pay attention to what I say or not. I want to do a certain thing in the world, and I'm going to do it with unwavering concentration. I am concerning myself with only one essential thing: to set man free. I desire to free him from all cages, from all fears, and not to find religions, sects, or establish new theories and new philosophies.
I love him.
He would spend the rest of his life traveling around the world, talking to audiences large and small, sometimes just one-on-one, sharing his ideas, but also sternly telling them to seek their own answers and to not follow him as someone who has the truth figured out, nor anybody else. I think I would fucking have liked this guy, even if we would have still argued over some shit.
Totally.
He wrote books, he definitely put his shit out there. But he also always told people, like, if you create a group around me, fuck off.
Yeah.
I do not want you following me, and don't follow anyone else.
Yeah.
Pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Annie Besant would hold the office of president of the Theosophical Society, the real one, of course, from 1907 until her death in 1933.
Our house was built in that time period.
Yeah, our house was built in 1911. She was clearly someone in a desperate search for an identity. She did some good things along the way, some questionable things, and some downright fucked up things, like a lot of people. Theosophy is still adhered to by people around the world, with most of the influence continuing to be in India, which was such a focus of Helena's. Their message of a world-healing universal truth is still what they are all about, despite nothing seeming to come from it for the last 130 years. Spiritualism was a trendy new possibility in a world that was upending and beginning to broaden its horizons through all kinds of new discovery, information, learning, and invention. But we moved on. Those who haven't are limited to those who are still buying into the legend of the Notorious HPB. So what you find is theosophists today are just a bunch of people who say like, no, it's all true. It's like, they know it's not. Their lives haven't, if it was true, then we would have all kinds of things would have changed. That was the promise of the truth. But they're still around and they're harmless. They're fucking not a problem. They are not doing anything wrong. I do not think if you are a theosophist, you need to change or get out of there. There are some places I'd be like, if I'm talking to, I'd be like, get the fuck out. But it's not necessary. It's fine. In fact, it's run-of-the-mill spiritual bullshit that you see. Well, not bullshit. Spiritual stuff you see all over. Yeah. Right? They still, of course, claim that she was everything she said she was, that she did everything she said she did, and that all this magical, miraculous stuff happened even though they don't see it in their own lives. It's like saying Jesus did a bunch of miraculous stuff because God just did that in the Bible times and he doesn't now.
Yeah.
That's lying to people to get them to believe that what you have is magical because things aren't miraculous because they aren't. They're symbols. Those things are communicating different things, but it becomes a very easy way to get people to maybe come along because we're all looking, right? We're all searching. I get that. We all are. I am. You have to be careful because next episode we'll talk about, let's talk about some of the stuff that she threw out there that, again, was just like, well, I got to keep the story going. I got to keep, if I have knowledge, I need to.
She's dead, but we still have one more episode.
We have two.
What? Oh, because
so the next episode,
far-reaching effects of her beliefs.
Listen, remember The Secret Doctrine, that book, The Secret Doctrine, that she had to publish herself because no one would publish it because it's too big? It came in two parts. The first one was all about the creation of the universe. We're not going to talk about that one. Okay. We're going to talk about the second volume, which is Anthropogenesis, which is the creation and evolution of man. And in that, she proposes this theory. Well, not a theory. It's not a theory she proposes. I shouldn't say that. Yeah. She proposes the exact true truth that came from ascended masters that have... And she's going to lay out how we got here. And it's going to be like, fucking shut the fuck up. But in this world, that they didn't have the last 130 years of stuff to know and find and learn and read, people believed it. And there's some stuff in there that was able to then kind of launch off into some really fucking brutal stuff that we're going to look at in the final episode when we're going to look at when Theosophy gets to Germany and then some German dudes pick up Theosophy. They run with a particular thing that Helena did throw out there. Yeah. She's got to be responsible for it. I'm not blaming her. I'm just saying you're responsible for the bullshit you put out there.
Yeah.
And you got to be careful.
Yeah.
And
from that, we get 6 million Jews dead and justified because of these spiritual beliefs that came from these masters that must be fucking true.
Yeah.
But we're going to see a bunch of other people go, I'm special too because I belong to this, because these masters said this, and they're talking to me too. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people are talking to the masters, and they're all doing what the fuck they want to do, apparently, because the masters are cool with that.
Which is why we should all be like that guy who was like, don't follow anybody.
I love that. Seek the truth. If you think there's truth out there, go after it.
Don't join a group.
But as soon as someone says I have it, fucking go fuck off and go
join
another way.
A group about it.
Yeah.
Do your own truth thing.
No one has the truth.
Yeah.
That's why we're all still looking. Right? If someone did, we'd all finally go, finally someone found it. Let's go. Let's just go do this. Right? But it's never worked out. We all end up descending into another search for the truth.
People think they do have it though.
Yeah. So next time we'll come back and we'll take a look at it's actually really fun. It's going to be fun. We're going to talk about Atlantis. Oh my God. We're going to fucking about all this fucking shit. It's really fun. It's not heavy or anything like that. It's going to be like, okay, here's what she said, how we got here. Mm-hmm. And as I go through it, you'll be like, oh, okay. I mean, that'd be fun, like animated series maybe or something. Like it sounds like really kind of archaic science fiction from the beginning of kind of science fiction at this time. I mean, this is like H.G. Wells and the Time Machine, in this era and stuff like that. So it's just coming online. So it's going to sound a lot like that. She's going to be able to say a lot of things because we hadn't dug up a lot of things yet. And there was just a few things that were dug up that had put some shit out into the kind of popular culture. So it'll be fun.
Yeah.
She comes up with some cool shit that I have to give her credit for creativity. Okay. We'll see you next time.